Win?
All right.
Yeah,
Hey, look, what did you want, right? Guard
it wasn't
report
pretty.
time. Let's do it. Jimmy Toscano is going to be jumping in a little bit. Good night if you're a Boston sports fan. The Patriots' dream scenario, trade down out of 14, get arguably top 10 value in a position of need, drafting
Oh
Christian
man,
Gonzalez.
I didn't know that.
Boom. So that happened. And then the Celtics in a dogfight, and hats off to Atlanta. They wouldn't friggin' go away, man. Like, no matter what you did there, they just hung and they hung tough. And this was a fun, entertaining game for 3 quarters, for all the whole game, and
Mhm.
just lights out basketball for the Celtics down the stretch there. They went on that 14-3 run and kind of like took control, Josue. And that was it, man. All she wrote, they friggin' put it away. And again, this is after a night where we question their focus and their intensity. And I don't think people have questioned what the Celtics do in close games. They just question what they do when they've got leads and
Yeah.
when they're kind of and they allow themselves to coast. But they manned up here. There was a lot of huge plays down the stretch here, worth talking about. And obviously, we're going to do that. We're going to break down the game. Give out some flowers to the guys who deserve them for their efforts tonight.
Yeah, man. There's a couple guys for sure.
Because there's a couple for sure, and we'll obviously start to look ahead to the Sixers. Celtics did, by the benefit of not having to force a Game 7, at least give themselves a little bit of rest, because they would have had to go Game 7 on Saturday and then Game 1 on Tuesday if they did get all the way through. So now all of this other stuff is a footnote. It's an afterthought. They've advanced, they're past, they're through. Podcast is brought to you, as always, by FanDuel. Go to FanDuel.com/Boston. Sign up. Get that free bonus. Running out of time. $200 in bonus bets when you make your first $5 real money wager. And let's get started with stuff, Josue. Just your kind of general takeaways of the game here. We could start at the end where they really did make some friggin' big boy plays, but just a lot of interesting stuff to talk about tonight.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Atlanta Hawks, they had the momentum and then they had the bodies. I think that's what made this scary, right? I think that's why it looked like the makings of an L, but the only difference was Tatum and Brown were sort of to each their own. They each had their momentum going, but you were waiting for them to just collect stops because no matter how much they were scoring, I mean, they both scored double digits in that third quarter. Obviously, over 30 points. They're in their bag, but the lead was non-existent. It was 1 point, 2 point. Like the Hawks hung around throughout until the 8-minute mark in the fourth quarter when the Celtics went on that run. And I think that was the scariest part of this, especially because they were getting comfortable. I mean, guys like Hunter was huge in this one. He was crashing, he was slashing through the lane with ease, with little to no resistance. He's knocking down 3-pointers. And I think that's what made it scary because I'm like, wait a minute, now these guys have bodies. Whereas before, that was never the case. It was Trae Young carrying the load in the fourth quarter and just wowing everyone with his 18 points. He goes off for 18 first quarter points, and it's like deja vu. But the Celtics are not only, the Hawks never got to a big lead, but what made it scary again was because it was the other guys finding their momentum. Bogdanovich finding his outside touch as well. You had Okongwu, man, huge stops, humongous stops down low. Robert Williams giving the Celtics a lot on the defensive end in that first half, but it almost felt like it didn't matter because the Hawks were still getting second chance opportunities off of his block. So this one was a scary one. I mean, I gotta get out all the worst part of this Celtics win, right? And before we start talking about the good stuff,
It was scary.
Yeah, I mean, look, this was easily the most entertaining game of the series, but also probably, if we're talking overall, easily the Hawks' best performance of the series, regardless if it came in the losing effort. I mean, if the Celtics don't go on that run in the fourth quarter, they were in the danger zone. They really were. I truly believe that. They were about 4 minutes away from a game 7. I mean, I want to say when there was like about 90 seconds left, you sort of got the feel like, okay, you can breathe now. The Celtics are going to win this one. But it wasn't. You didn't get that feeling until those final couple of minutes, really.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't. I mean, there was that run there. I mean, where they really put that game away, that 14-3 run, and they got big buckets, they got big stops. I mean, there's some really big boy basketball there. So, again, kudos. Kudos there because they friggin', they answered the bell. This game was in question until it wasn't.
And it wasn't Tatum and Brown exclusively, right? It wasn't just their show. Marcus Smart hit a couple of good big shots down the stretch. Al Horford deep in the corner for that 3. I mean, those type of looks. That's what that's the recipe for a Celtics win, when other guys are obviously hitting big shots as well, but you're seeing the Celtics put together defensive stops. And for a while that wasn't the case, but the Celtics just couldn't get back in transition. It seemed like the Hawks were just one step ahead, and we got to credit Snyder. This coaching battle. I mean, I think Joe Mazzulla, he was second guessing himself a lot throughout the series, and it's okay to say that, right? It's not like breaking news. You know what I mean? I think a lot of people would look back and think, man, like at the end of the day, the Celtics had to go on that huge run to complete the series, but Snyder threw a lot of curveballs at Joe Mazzulla, and seeing him put in Grant Williams, I thought was good. It was the right decision. It was an interesting decision, but also waiting to get Rob back in there, I was worried about that. I'm like, where's Rob? Rob needs to finish this game, and he did, and he had a big part.
Yeah.
And stringing together those stops that the Celtics needed to get their offense going on that big run.
He did. Weird game just in terms of who played. Of course, Grant Williams, friggin' Jimmy, you good? We can't hear you. Oh, you're on mute though. It's not.
Oh, he's on mute.
How about now?
Are you serious? No. Hold on.
Yo,
if you're on mute, good, baby. You're good.
You're on mute this entire time.
Dude,
no.
I feel like the biggest rookie in the world after what just happened to me for the past 10 minutes or however long it's been. Apologies, everybody.
6 minutes in. We're good.
Jason Tatum apologized to Janet Jackson after the game tonight for delaying her concert. And I'm going to apologize to everybody here for delaying the start of our show. That was my fault. I thought Josue had some audio issues. Turns out my computer's all just screwed up, and I couldn't get my freaking audio to work over here.
Jimmy's texting me independently. Effing Josue, man. And
I was not. That is not true.
The truth comes out.
Everything is above ground. I would just bash Josue to his face. I have no problem with that.
Freaking Josue, man. Get in here, Zannis. Save us. And I was like, all right.
Shout out John Zannis for pretending to have a clue on what happened in the Celtics game tonight. We know he was drooling over the NFL draft, obsessed with the Patriots just trading back for the next.
He watched the ending, so that's good. But listen,
Josue, would anybody have been any the wiser if Jimmy didn't blow up my spot? I was pretty good. No, I'll be honest.
Seriously, why did you say that?
I don't, because he owes me
watch. One. I don't even know.
I smoked him one time. I watched the entire first half. I couldn't. We were in the thick of it. I couldn't watch a hair of the third quarter.
Dude, the Patriots dragged out their pick for an hour.
And then I got stuck doing that, and I got stuck. And then we made it into, and then last 5-6 minutes I got to watch that too. But I missed a chunk, so I do feel bad about that. But interesting everything. And look, we're not going to start with Grant Williams and why didn't you play Grant? But what the hell Joe Mazzulla, this isn't quite Malcolm Butler, situation, but Joe Mazzulla's got to explain his thinking. Because Grant Williams was important tonight, and Grant Williams probably could have been important other times. And I just wonder if you played Grant Williams instead of Blake Griffin, if you're even worried about this game right now. I'm confused what happened between last game and this game that made. I'm not overstating the importance.
Get ready for that Bobby take. That's coming soon.
I'm not overstating the importance of Grant Williams. I'm just baffled that he goes from a guy who averages 24 minutes a game to 0, and everyone's like, "Yeah, no, it's normal." It wasn't normal. It's weird.
Yeah. It's a trust thing, man. I think that's the.
It's a hate thing. He hates him. He hates him because he talks too much.
I'd say trust. Oh well, there may be something to that. I don't know if the hate part. He does talk a lot, but at least he's not that same guy we saw when he was getting consistent minutes.
Grant Williams, Robert
say much
Williams,
to the officials.
Same amount of minutes.
Yeah, well, that's what Mazzulla wants out of him at the end of the day. Just play. Just get those 3-point shots to fall. Go back on the other end. Take charges. Change the complexity of the game in some way, and just play, man. A lot of the times that wasn't Grant, especially throughout the course of the regular season, man. He would talk himself out of the game. He would look, he would look like he was unfazed by his disappointing performance at times. And I think it really got to Joe Mazzulla at times. And look, maybe he was in the doghouse, maybe not. But I really do think when it comes down to it, it's a trust thing for Joe Mazzulla. And I feel like he saw this other team succeed and play well without Grant, so that he was like, look, if that's the case, if this is what I got to do to get the most out of you, then I'll bench you. You're not a surefire spot in this rotation. And I think I
still weak though. I mean, what kind of message is that sending? He could bench everybody on this team at some point in the year. The way that these guys, not everybody. I mean, there's a few guys that you wouldn't, but there's been situations where some of the star players have deserved to be benched and they get away with things. And I'm not putting Grant on that level, but I don't really think it makes sense to just pick on one guy for acting out when.
No, but it's not just one guy. It's not just one guy. I mean, Sam Hauser, if he's not knocking down shots, you don't see him. That's what happened tonight. You know what I mean? Like Grant's in that same sort of boat where we all thought that Grant was like second guy off the bench no matter what. Why? What tells you that? What about his game tells you that he has to get those minutes?
Nothing. He to me, he earned the bench spot from his play. So in that sense, yeah, if you can't be trusted in that way. I thought it was interesting that the other Williams, Rob, got as little playing time as he got tonight too. I thought that was more of an indictment on
it was weird.
what Missoula's seen from Rob. Like we know that he's basically called them out for consistency. I thought Rob was pretty inconsistent last game, and I wonder if that had anything to do with his playing time tonight. So I thought that was the message more than anything. I think Grant's just the benefactor of what Joe Mazzulla is trying to get out of Rob more than anything else.
I think that's true. And I think there's some subtext there. Every time we talk about like, we need to be more focused in this and that, I think people always look at like Tatum, because, he has these weird kind of sleepwalky sort of performances time to time, or Smart or Jalen every once in a while when they drift in and out or have some lapses. But I think Rob has to be one of those people that they think about too, which is kind of like they love him. I think Rob and Grant both fall into that category. Just Grant hadn't been playing of like, they love him. But like, they're like, man, but like, can't you just be the good version of yourself, And like, so I think Rob's effort and Rob's focus sometimes kind of goes in and out. You can have really good Rob, and then you can have what the hell is he doing out there, Rob?
Mm-hmm.
And so, I feel like the last two Robs we've gotten haven't been great. So yeah, that's probably why Grant got some of his minutes there, as they weren't getting necessarily the minutes, but he was big late. I'll ask you guys this: are they absolved of their Game 5 meltdown?
No. Philadelphia is watching that tape as we speak. I'm telling you.
I mean, John, leading up to like maybe the 4-minute mark in the fourth quarter, this was anybody's game. I mean, it felt like really it kind of felt like the Hawks were going to pull it off. I mean, it just felt like they had answers, they had energy. Trae Young went cold in the second half, and that's really what it comes down to. I think if he hits a few of his shots that he was making, and some of them were open, this might be a different game. And then around the board,
also Jimmy Murray was like non-existent in the first half, so I think that kind of
Murray was iffy. But this was a game that, to be honest, I thought the Hawks blew this one. This was a game where they had every opportunity to win this game and pull away, and instead they let the Celtics go on that huge run. It was like 13-4 or something like that towards the end of the fourth quarter. And you got to give credit to the Celtics for it. Tatum had that massive putback dunk. Brown had a dagger. Marcus Smart. I hate to tell you, John, I don't know if you caught much of the end, but you're going to see Marcus Smart at the end of these games moving forward, because he did.
I watched the whole thing. I watched long enough to be so mad Marcus Smart was playing, and then also be like, well, there go the 5 awesome Marcus Smart plays that completely wipe out all of it. And overall, he had a good game, but during a stretch there, you're just like the turnovers, pass to Tatum, jack the three, and it's like, dude, not what you need right now, Yeah.
But then what happens? Missoula sticks with him. He drills a 3, and then he drives to the lane, fakes the pass for 3, and lays it up. And then obviously plays the good defense on the inbounds of Trae in the corner, where he took a couple basketballs to the gut, if you will.
Yeah, and Trae Young, Trae Young melted down in the second half.
Yeah,
1 for 13 field goals, went ice cold.
Yep. And I think honestly that if he hits a couple of those, we might be talking a different game. But it doesn't absolve the Celtics, because they fell into a lot of the same traps that they fell in tonight. Yeah, I'm sure there's plenty of those. I didn't think the energy was there early on in the game. I thought they were giving up tons of O boards, second chance points. The defense was very lackadaisical. I thought they were sleepwalking. I mean, they gave up on their own made free throw. They gave up like an and one, like right off the inbounds. And then I thought summed up their, sort of effort and energy level to that point. Now, it's credit to them, because in the fourth quarter, like I said, about 2/3 of the way through, they snapped out of it. I don't know what was said or what needed to be done, but you could see something kind of flip, and all of a sudden they punch the Hawks in the mouth. They go from being down to up like 10, just like that, right? It just kind of happened in like 2 minutes flat. Hawks called a timeout, and that was kind of the end of it. I think Tatum's dunk was kind of the dagger on that. So we can officially look towards the Sixers. I don't think we need to break down this game like crazy. I mean, there was a lot of, there's certainly things we can take out of it moving forward. I think there's still some concerns, and I already think we touched upon one of them is the Williams situation. I thought Brown was great tonight in a lot of spurts. I thought, I think he continues to be their best player. He was huge in a couple of big spots tonight. And then, it's him and Tatum at the end of the day. And I thought Tatum was obviously better than he was in Game 5. I'll throw his stat line up here: 30 points, 11 of 20, 4 of 10 from 3, better than 1 through 11, better than last game, obviously. And just showed a little bit more heart, I think, late in that second half. What's up, Sherrod? Speaking of heart.
What's going on, fellas? Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
What a game. Listen, other than the fact that you got some pissed off folks who were planning to see Janet Jackson instead of the Atlanta Hawks in the building tonight, and as someone who has actually gone to concerts that Janet Jackson has held and has had when she came to Boston. But her concert in Boston that got totally screwed up, and like a lot of Hawks fans had to see her later down the road. Wasn't happy about that. Fans here weren't happy about that. But the Celtics, they're a happy chap right now. This was a really good game. The weird part about this game was that even though the Celtics I thought played great for basically the first 5 minutes and the last 5. And they were just solid in between. But the championship caliber team that you expect to see, we saw in the first 5 minutes and the last 5. And that's when they get off to that 12-2 start. Marcus Smart is scoring, getting guys involved, and down the stretch, Smart, Tatum, Brown, they make all the plays that have to be made. And they get the win. And the Hawks just looked to me like a team that just ran out of steam in the end there. Trey could only do so much. He had a hell of I thought last 3 or 4 games, he was really good. And if you're the Celtics, you're glad to be done with these guys because they made you work a hell of a lot harder than you probably thought you would. Bobby's going to get on here a little bit later. Him and we talked a little bit about maybe the Hawks team was a little bit better than I think people thought. But I don't think that was it. I just think the Celtics saw them as a team that barely got their ass into the playoffs through the play-in game, and we can play around with them. And, bad things happen when you play with your food. When you got it in your plate, you eat well. You eat it up and you keep it moving. You don't play with it.
I like how you changed that, Sherrod. Good job. Good work.
I'm just saying. I just know that, listen, the Celtics, they're going to be they're going to play better against the Sixers. There's no doubt about it. You're not going to see, I think, what I thought were mental lulls in this series, more so than we've seen typically from these guys.
You heard Giannis say it on his post game. Yesterday.
There are no losers in sports. John.
No, not that quote. The better.
Want to have a debate on that quote? Let's do that.
No, thank you. Because I love Giannis, but that was a silly quote.
I thought of you when he said that, John. But keep moving.
The better quote was, "We were playing to win the finals, and they were playing to beat us." That's the best quote he gave because that was honest and dead on about how they viewed the Heat. Maybe that could have been in regards to him taking a game off and thinking they could get away with it, just their general approach. But just thinking like they're thinking ahead, how do we get ourselves ready and prepped for when the serious games begin? And they weren't worried about the here and the now, and they got beat by basically one guy. I mean, and a team that was really banged up themselves. And it wasn't even I mean, it was the games were close, but 4-1. So again, that's kind of what the Celtics were doing here. Is I think their eyes are on way down the road, and not necessarily on this. And last game was definitely a wake up call, but they were in a fight, man, all game long. This was no joke, and it wasn't like a we're sleepwalking through this game again sort of fight. It was like crap, the Hawks are bringing it. Right?
Yeah.
We breathed life into these guys. Like, we've done something bad. And you were very, very close to potentially a game 7 because you kind of had that same mentality of like, I'm looking ahead towards the final. I'm looking to win a championship. I'm not really paying attention to these guys right now. And they were pretty close to having to come back to Boston, play a game 7. And thankfully, you know, again, they kind of ripped it down the stretch there. So hats off for the late game performance, but they let Atlanta hang around, not just in games, but the series for way too long.
They gave them life that Atlanta just didn't deserve.
Yeah,
when you get into the playoffs as a play-in team, you should be dispatched quickly because you just know that the odds of you doing well are not great. And the Celtics, I thought they got away from so many of the things that worked in those first couple of games. Like when Trae Young is looking to score, it would be nice to get a hand up in his face.
Yeah,
it would be nice. I mean, I'm not talking about blocking his shot. I'm not talking about being all up in his airspace. I mean, actually, like physically raise your hand up like you're trying to defend. At least give the look of defense. And that just didn't happen until you saw like the latter stages of the game. They started playing some defense. So, again, this was – have you – please tell me you guys haven't talked about JB yet. Damn.
We haven't talked about individual – we're talking on a global scale. We're not talking about individual. We haven't done much individually here.
We didn't talk Tatum either.
We haven't talked Tatum. We barely said Smart. We talked more Grant than anything. Yeah, we're talking globally here.
Yeah, but the big picture is this.
Jalen was good. Tatum was good. Like, we got it. Like, they were good.
Well, you know? I mentioned how they were both cooking, especially after halftime. But
Jimmy said something about Jalen.
There was no lead there. You know what I mean? So it was like, wait a minute. Like, the Hawks got bodies now. You know, but Sherrod, before you hopped on, I mean, Bogdanovich started getting to the rim. You had Hunter shooting and getting to the rim.
DeAndre Hunter, he looks like the second best player on this team right now.
John Collins heating up, cooking up. I'm like, wait a minute. All of a sudden, these guys have bodies. They better respond in a big way. And, until that big run into in the fourth quarter.
Well, they got in the jam, and so what did they do? In case of emergency, hey, Grant, buddy, let's see what you got for us.
And you know what? Brogdon too. I thought Brogdon did a couple plays, especially when it seemed like the Hawks were trying to get into the momentum. I was like, okay, guys, settle down. That was good. I want more of that, more Brogdon at times, and especially when Rob checked back in, because I was getting worried, Sherrod. I was like, when are you going to put Rob back in there?
Well, the first half of the game was the Hawks bench just absolutely outplayed the Celtics in every. I mean, it was so bad that every single player in the Hawks had a positive plus minus that came off the bench, and every single Celtic had a negative. Plus minus. Okay, and to me, the fact that the game was still, I mean, the Celtics were up by 1 at the half was surprising considering how lacking impact that bench was for them. And the starters were good, but they weren't great. And that's the thing that I kind of come away with this series, that it's a good series win, but you didn't play great basketball. And as you get deeper into the playoffs, and we know this, you have to elevate your play. I mean, Jason Tatum was a 30-plus point per game scorer in the regular season, and he's had 2 games in this series out of 6 where he cracked the 30-point barrier. And no surprise, they won both of those games. So they've got to figure out a way for him to balance that need to get buckets but be efficient. And again, this Jaylen Brown just continues to be he's just amazing to me how he is just able to consistently just elevate his game at the right time in the right moment to help this team. Because he missed 5 of his first 7 shots, and I'm thinking, crap, this is going to be that one bad game that Jalen has in the playoffs, and it's going to cause problems. And he just bounced back and was really strong for, I thought, the last 3 quarters, certainly down the stretch in the fourth. You know, he finished the game. He had 7 of his 32 points in the fourth quarter, made big shots, got to the free throw line, did all the things that he has consistently done throughout this season, and the Celtics come away with a win. And I don't know how much you've talked about Al Horford, but
a little bit.
If we had an end-game apology cam, I would have to go and do it for Al, because
you were like, take this dude out of here.
Al is like 37, 38, but he looked like 56, 57, 58. He looked horrible. I mean, DeAndre Hunter was giving him the business. Everyone in that, John Collins giving him the business, and he just didn't look engaged. And I don't think it was because of lack of effort. He looked like he couldn't move out there. And then He's getting rebounds. He sees a shot go down, and next thing you know, he's coming up with some late game daggers that helped him get this win. So shout out to Al Horford for just really stepping his game up down the stretch when they needed him to step up, because I think that was a big part of why Mazzulla kept rotating him and Rob and Grant, and he was looking for somebody who could actually get some work done in that front court, because they were getting their asses kicked on the glass, on the offensive glass, for a large part of this game. And one thing you probably didn't notice, in the fourth quarter, the Celtics were +7 on the boards, and it was the only quarter where they actually seemed to have some semblance of competitiveness and dominance and just more than held their own. And Al Horford obviously had a lot to do with that. So shout out to Al. I'm sorry for thinking you were old and out and just done with it in this game.
Damn, Sherrod.
How many times does he have to prove that to you, man?
Stop it, Jimmy. Stop it, Jimmy. Jimmy, you saw the same game I did. In the first half, Al was not good.
No, you're right.
I give him so much credit for just kind of putting everything together and just making all those big shots and big plays, defensive plays too. The last 3 minutes of this game might have been the best stretch of defense the Celtics played in the entire postseason thus far.
And the whole playoffs, yeah, I agree with that.
Atlanta couldn't even inbound the damn ball. I mean, Trey had to throw it off of Marcus twice, and then they say, okay, well, let's go with DeAndre Hunter. We'll have him inbound. And then he's going to throw it off of Al. Yeah, and then when they finally were able to inbound the ball, they threw the shit out of bounds. that to me was one of the greatest defensive stretches we've seen from this team all season long, because you don't see that. Yeah. You don't see a team struggle to inbound the ball like that.
Yeah, but see, that's the thing, though, Sherrod. And I'm glad you brought that up, because when the Celtics smell blood, and what I mean by that is, a good 5-6 point lead, then they're like, okay, all hands on deck. Let's get this stopped. Let's close this thing out. But why can't they have that same intensity when it's, a 12-point lead, right? Or a 15-point lead? And all of a sudden it's just like, we got this. And then their defense turns into turnstiles. I mean, look across the NBA. If they continue to fall into these habits, and I'm sure they will, but if it happens more times than not, I don't know, man. We're talking about a game 7, whether it's against Philly or if they make it through the next round. Like, there's going to be a lot of those instances where you're wondering, oh, here we go again. Is this the old Celtics? Here come the old habits all over again. Right. I can't help but believe that it's going to happen after seeing the series, after seeing the play the Hawks.
Yeah.
Well, it's
Go ahead, Jimmy. You got it.
It's like, I think a lot of people are going to have PTSD about it, right? But I mean, real quick on Al. The one thing I'll say, Al fired them up a little bit late in that fourth. That 3-pointer he hit in the corner. And he pointed at the Hawks bench after they were probably chirping at him.
Well, they were talking trash. They just said on Twitter, Bobby. Yeah.
He was fired up. You had the Tatum put back dunk. He was fired up. Then you had Marcus Smart's 3. He was fired up. Those guys, like right those final minutes, and not a coincidence, like as like the energy started to sort of change in their direction, the shots start to fall. They're feeling that like swagger. The only thing you can hope for if you're a Celtics fan is that this is what they needed to happen for them to learn, but not learn the ultimate hard way, like say the Bucks are learning today, right? Like they learn that they can't get away with sleepwalking or coasting through games, because when they do, teams will knock them in the mouth. And the deeper you go into the playoffs, the more likely that's going to happen. The harder it's going to be able to get back up. A guy named Jimmy Butler isn't going to let you get back up, right? A guy like Joel Embiid isn't going to let you get back up. So these are the things that they had to learn in this series. And I guess we'll find out if they did or if they didn't, because we very, very well might be talking about a similar outcome like from game 4, right? Because this team, the one thing I'll say, good for them for pulling it off tonight and advancing, but they haven't earned our trust, I don't think, based on what we've seen so far.
Well, based on what we've seen the Celtics have just consistently play down to the level of their opponent. But the flip side of that is the better the opponent, the more Philly, there will not be a lack of respect for Philadelphia. 1, because they got the damn league MVP in Joel Embiid. 2, you got a head coach who's won a championship in this city of Boston. And 3, the way that Philadelphia just easily dispatched of a pesky Brooklyn team, you gotta respect what they did. And I don't think that's going to be an issue. In fact, I would not be surprised if the Celtics win that series in 5 games. Because I think that when they're blocked in the way we saw at the first 4 or 5 minutes of this game and the last 4 or 5 minutes, they become absolutely a juggernaut. They become damn near unbeatable. And in this game, like I said, there's so many different players that stepped up when it absolutely mattered. But the guy that, again, for me, for my money's worth, that was a difference maker in this was Marcus Smart. One of the issues that
everybody drink.
Exactly, that's my guy. You know, that's my guy. And when I can talk shit about my guy playing well, I'm going to do that, which is exactly what I'm going to do.
Right. Here we go.
Marcus set the tone.
He's not gonna, he won't cut your name out again, Sherrod. Don't worry, man. You good.
He set the tone at the beginning. He made the plays down the stretch, set up guys up. That 3-pointer that he hit, where he basically waited for someone from Atlanta to jump out and rush him, and then he raised up, knocked it down, put him up 124, 116. Those are the kind of plays that, again, you're not going to get them from him every night. Let's not kid ourselves. That ain't happening every night.
Yeah, because you were worried when he missed those back-to-back threes, and I was like, okay, Marcus, that's enough. Like that was around the 5-minute mark too. It was like, okay.
Oh, that was bad. I texted you guys. I was like, here we go, back-to-back.
Yeah. Those are bad shots.
Only thing that saved them was the Hawks were bricking them too, right back.
Yeah, and that's what they bank on though, right, Jimmy? I mean, when they got out those layups, especially in the first half, it was like they were taking 1-2 passes, and they were pretty much looking like what the Celtics looked like in game one, right? With all those easy layups and transition, where the Celtics' defense was just not where it was supposed to be. It was like one step behind, and then the three started falling, and then Trey went off. It was a lot going on in the first half, man. And yeah, obviously, the Celtics may not face someone like Trey in the next round, but Joel Embiid, he causes other kinds of problems. So
he does. He does. Yeah, he causes, tremendous amount of problems with his ability to play really inside out, with that kind of power, that kind of strength. So he's going to be a load. But it was good to see them dust off Grant a little bit, get him ready for the next round.
Yeah, they need him. He's
good to see. This series,
they need him for sure. Yeah.
Were you going to finish your thought on Marcus though? You want to?
I'm gonna let it go. I'm not gonna be like Bobby and just have talk all about my guy and lemon loaves and.
Well, you know what, Sherrod? I will say this is, there's been a lot of people.
You're gonna have some baked goods tonight, huh? I wonder
where a lot of people, me included, who have been kind of questioning, should it be Marcus playing late in games? Like, why is Brogdon sitting on the bench in situations where maybe they need somebody to get them more in order or calm things down? But tonight was an example of, Marcus Smart takes a couple of I wouldn't even say ill-advised shots, but, he breaks some threes, and Mazzulla sticks with him. And then you kind of see why, because that's the Marcus Smart experience, right? Like you kind of take the good with the bad.
Yeah, but I think Joe Mazzulla is getting a better feel for how he has to use his players. I think he did a little bit of that offense defense there for a stretch. With I thought I thought he did a really good job of late in the game just having Grant on the floor with certain matchups instead of Al, because I think Grant does a little bit better job switching out on some of those wings than I think Al does. Like Al, I think Al is like, he can deal with the bigs, he can deal with the little guards, but it's those ones in between I think that kind of give him problems. And I thought Grant in certain situations did a good job of just being present and accounting for and just making the little hustle plays. And to me, like we talked about the other, when he got in, a few nights ago, he kept his mouth shut. He played the game. He didn't talk. He didn't flap his gums. He didn't get frustrated when he got a call that he didn't agree with. He just played. And that, I think he's understanding is how he's going to get back in on the floor. Just simply go out there and play. Don't give us all that other extraneous stuff, because you can't get away with that stuff the way Jason Tatum can or Jaylen Brown can or some of the other guys who have been there, done that, and established their real estate, if you will, when it comes to, having those conversations with refs. So it's good to see Grant focusing on just playing basketball, because they're going to need him to do that more so in this Sixers series. Because I think our good friend Sam Hauser, I don't think we'll see much of him against Philly. I just don't see that. Just doesn't look like a good pairing for him, because frankly, the idea of him having a guard Tobias Harris or Maxey, I'm not crazy about that. Even the Nang kid, I'm not crazy about him either.
Georges?
So, yeah.
Local
Georges. Yep, exactly. That's why I mentioned him. I'm not crazy.
Niang, like Niang. Yeah, it'll be a tough series for him. He hit a 3-pointer in this one, and it just seemed like he couldn't keep up on defense, and Joe Mazzulla pulled the plug.
As he should.
Yeah, we didn't see him the rest of the night. So
he was everyone that matched up against him had free reign. When Sadiq Bey was in there, go at him. When he's got switched out on Trey, going at him. And the way the Celtics were defending Trey, which kind of bothered me, whenever Trey would get dribble penetration, the big wouldn't really come up in contestants like maybe the last couple minutes there. Where Al did that. It drives me nuts when he beats a guy off the dribble, gets into the paint, and just floats, and the defender is just standing there. I mean, at least get a hand up, and that's the
drop coverage, man. It was way too much space. Yeah,
way too much space for Philadelphia now is a different animal. You can kind of get away with that a little bit more against Philly, because I just think Philadelphia has some offensive question marks to them outside of Joel Embiid. James Harden is not the same dude that he was 2, 3, 4 years.
What about Maxey, Sherrod? I feel like he could have a big series. I don't know.
He could, but the thing about Maxey, you got to expose him defensively. I don't think he's a very good defender. I don't think he's a bad defender. I just don't think he's very good. And to me, that's where you got to expose him. You got to get him in situations where he's
guys like White and Brogdon should dust him. Yeah, that's true.
You got to go beast mode on him. I mean, you got to get Al out there playing away from the basket, and then just have Brogdon or Smart just rolling as if they're just kind of rolling through the baseline and just stop on a block and find him matched with Maxey if you got Embiid out and just go to work.
Yeah, I mean, that's what worries me the most about this team moving forward. It's the defense. I just thought the Atlanta Hawks just looked way too comfortable in the last couple of games, especially tonight. And I think if you're the Philadelphia 76ers, man, you're taking notes. If you're Doc Rivers and his coaching staff, I mean, the Celtics clearly had this team's number throughout the course of the regular season. Maybe minus one game, it was almost a sweep, and they caused a lot of problems for Philly. So Philly knows that. Doc Rivers knows that. But guys like Joel Embiid and Harden and Tobias Harris, I think those are the guys that I feel like the Celtics they have to find a way to put those consistent stops, especially late in the fourth quarter or even the second half as a whole. I mean, that's something that just worries me about the Celtics team, where you just saw the Hawks just get off into so many offensive runs throughout the series. Even though some of these games didn't translate into wins, you wonder what happens when you have someone like Joel Embiid on the other end. When you're on the wrong end of like a crazy run that the Celtics found themselves, at countless times throughout the series.
Yeah, and the thing that Philadelphia is going to have, I think, the biggest issues with is just matching up with Tatum and Brown, because one of those guys is going to have, when they're on the floor together, one of them will have a significant mismatch almost every possession. And if you're Philadelphia, how do you match that? And obviously, Joel Embiid is going to have a mismatch damn near every possession. But here's the thing. Joel Embiid is at his best when he's around the basket getting you layups. But you've got multiple guys who've shown the ability over time to defend him and defend him well. He's going to get his points for sure, but he's going to have to work for him. I'm not sure Tatum and Brown are going to have to work nearly as hard to get their points. And then it just becomes a matter of being solid defensively against everyone not named Joel Embiid. And if you do that, if you're the Celtics, you're done in 5 games. You'll win both at home. You'll split there in Philly, and then you'll come back for Game 5 and call it a night.
Wow!
And wait for the winner of the Miami-New York series.
So that's your prediction? Celtics in 5. You're going at it already, huh? Okay.
Yeah, already. I mean, listen.
Hey, where's Embiid at health-wise?
See, that's a major question mark. Listen. If anyone thinks that Joel Embiid is not going to play, I'm just going to let you sleep this one off, because clearly you're dreaming. You're clearly dreaming. So you keep sleeping on and having that wonderful dream of yours. I'm going to let you rest. He's going to play. There's no way in hell I can see Joel Embiid not playing. No way in hell.
I think he's playing too. It's just a matter of how effective he will be.
Yeah, and he may be on a minutes restriction of some sort, perhaps, but his ass is going to be out there, and he's going to be a load to deal with. Joel Embiid doesn't have the kind of cast around him to where he can be a decoy. The Celtics will absolutely challenge him to be effective, and if he's just out there just swinging the ball over the guys, the Celtics, they're not going to react to that. They're going to try to play him straight up man to see what they can do in that scenario and see if he's looking to score, if he's looking to just pass to Maxey and Tobias. And I like the Celtics' chances when you've got you're getting a heaping of Maxey and Tobias and 2023 James Harden, because that's the guy that if you're the Celtics, you're cool with that dude. You ain't too worried about that James Harden. He's still an impactful player, but this isn't a guy that's going to go out and get you 50.
Is James Harden washed? I'll ask the question. Is he washed?
I don't think he's washed. I just think he's not the guy that we've grown up watching. James Harden, to me, he's just on the downside of James Harden life. He's still
it just happened sooner than people expected.
Yeah, I mean, he still can go out there and get him 20. Yeah, he can still get a double of 20 and 10.
But then when you look back on his career, or at least when he was killing it, when he was in his prime like that, and all those deep playoff runs, you can sort of see. Well, obviously, when you coincide with the pandemic and the congested season after the year in the bubble, it's like, well, that kind of makes sense, right? I mean, Harden, he was in a weird situation with the Nets, and we know what he looked like when he came out of that season, a bit out of shape, and I just felt like it all just spelled out for the kind of player that we're seeing today when you consider how old he is and how many mileage he has on those legs.
Yeah. Guys, go ahead, Jimmy.
Before we get too deep into the Celtics Sixers series, I want to remind everybody that this show is brought to you by our good friends at FanDuel. Bet $5 on FanDuel when you sign up.
One day right now.
$200 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/Boston. Not just basketball bets, but you can do some baseball bets right now. With the Red Sox are in play. Crack of the bat, snap of the mitt. Baseball is the season. I know this is a basketball show, but there's only so many basketball games on right now, right? The teams are cut down. With baseball, you got options all over the place. So check out those bets as well. We all have the app. We use it a lot. And I actually just took a peek at the early line for Celtics Sixers game 1. Anyone want to handicap game 1, what that line would be? Any guesses?
For game 1?
Yeah, for guess. Yeah, any game 1 guesses?
I'm saying Celtics 3.5.
Josue?
For game 1, I'm going to say Celtics 5.5.
Okay, you're close.
It's lower than that.
No, it's actually Celtics -7.
What?
In game 1. They are 7-point favorites for game 1. That's the early line on FanDuel for anyone who's looking to get their.
It's because they're at home and the way that they. But still,
they're probably thinking.
Shout out to FanDuel for coming with a number that makes a brother want to say, "Damn."
And if you want to bet the Celtics in the series, they're -290, which means you'd have to bet $290 to win $100, like on top of your $290. So that's just quick little gambling talk. But anyways, just real quick, visit FanDuel.com/Boston. Make every moment more. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball. We're talking about basketball, but also baseball. 21 plus and present in Massachusetts to be a part of this deal. First online real money wager only. $10 first deposit required. Bonuses issued is not withdrawable. Bonus bets expire in 14 days. So once you sign up, you got 14 days to place your Celtics bets, all your Celtics bonus bets. Guys, gambling problem, hope is here. Gambling help line MA.org or call 1-800-327-5050 for 24/7 support. Play it smart from the start. GameSenseMA.com or call 1-800-GAM-1234. I'll just toss this up one more time so you guys can see it. FanDuel.com/Boston and get your bets in on that Celtics -7. So if you think that maybe it's going to be a closer game, maybe you bet against the Celtics. I don't know, but either way, they're feeling good right now. Tatum's feeling good. Who's your MVP of the series? I think it's an easy answer.
This series?
Yeah, the first series.
Jaylen Brown.
Yeah.
Jaylen.
Let's talk about Jaylen Brown for a minute so nobody says that we never talk about Jaylen Brown.
Jaylen Brown's the MVP. Jaylen Brown, I don't even think it's close.
It's not.
When you look at it, it's not so, and it isn't just the points that he scored, it's the impact that those points made. It's the timing of those points. His scoring came typically when Atlanta was either making a run or the Celtics needed some little oomph to get over the hump. Tatum, now game 6 tonight, Tatum made some big shots down the stretch, no doubt about that. But if you're talking about the totality of this 6-game series, it's easily Jaylen Brown.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. I think he was a constant threat on offense. Even when he would, like you said, the way he started off, he would have missed. Sometimes he would miss 2-3 shots, but then he would respond in a big way. Was never down on himself. Was never the guy that we sometimes characterized him as, the guy with the shoulder slumps when it wasn't going his way and not engaging with his teammates. That we saw a different version of Jaylen. And well, I shouldn't say that because this is the version that carried over from those pretty much since the All-Star break, or even a little bit before that, the second half Jaylen, if you will. And I just think that approach is just such a thorn in opposing teams' side, where a lot of teams are game planning for Tatum, shading double teams towards Tatum, and Jalen just capitalizes not only in the half court set, but when he gets out in transition. I mean, he's one of the first guys up the floor, and he's just sort of looking ahead to the next play at times, where I feel like sometimes we would also give Jalen a hard time. I'm sure our viewers will remind us that he was sort of check out sometimes mentally, you know what I mean? And not in like a bad way, but sort of like, wait, hey, come on, wake up. You know what I mean? Like Marcus sometimes has to say, hey, Jalen, get there, or he'll make a mistake on defense, where we're not seeing that pretty much at all throughout the postseason, at least up until this point. So yeah, I agree with that for sure. I think Jalen's your MVP, at least for this series.
He's been your MVP for the second half of the regular season and the first series. Like, he's still going strong, right? He hasn't slowed down one bit. He's been huge for them. I love his attitude going into these playoffs. He was a killer last playoffs too. I mean, don't forget, he was kind of the guy I'm talking about last season, that kind of stepped up his game. So he definitely has that. I'm not going to say anyone's on Jimmy Butler's level, but I think if anyone on the Celtics has that in them somewhere, seems like he might to some extent. I still think he's not like Mr. Fourth Quarter like Butler is. Certainly not. I mean, I think that's probably one part of his game that he can work on, is maybe just becoming a little bit more of a focal point. Maybe he's just a product of the offense or what, but sometimes you just have to go get yours and just be the guy. And I think that he has that in him. He's showing that. So shout out to him. I want to say shout out to Mikhail one more time. Get a good look at this, guys. This is actually from a Hawks fan. Must be the only Hawks fan, right? I didn't think they had a fan base, but shout out to Mikhail.
Stop hating on the Hawks, man. Listen, man.
It's
bad enough that they had to play this damn game, in lieu of the Janet Jackson concert, man. Come on.
Do you think anyone? There were definitely a couple people that
give us some insight on that. Like, right? How does that happen? Is that just the box office blatantly being like, there's no way the series is going 6? Like, how do you have that scheduling conflict?
Well, the fact is that they had a tentative plan in case this happened, which they have their own in case of an emergency. This is what we're going to pivot to, and that's what they've done with the Janet Jackson concert. But to their credit, think about this: the Hawks were playing in a playing game against a team that appeared to be better than them. And so the thinking was that they're probably going to lose. And if they lose another game, then they're out of the playoffs altogether. So when they finally get in and they're playing, the team with the second best record in the NBA, you're thinking this might go 4 or 5 games. So let's get Jan in for that game 6 spot. But in case some miracle, are still playing.
Because Sherrod, those are two very different fan bases. It's not like the Janet Jackson crowd is just like, oh, it's all good. It was probably going to be on Friday. Go Hawks. Like, they have no idea. They're probably making their plans for a Thursday night show. And then the Hawks win. They're like, wait, why does this affect our plans? Oh, actually, it does, because State Farm Arena is going to have that game no matter what on Thursday. I think it's funny.
Right. And that's I mean, I think certainly if the Hawks had a better seeding for the playoffs, I don't think they would have booked it. I think they would have just said, there's a chance that we may have them play. But this, I get it. I put it this way. I always look at these type of things where what would I have done if I were like State Farm Arena folks, and I would have absolutely booked Janet Jackson for Game 6. Hell yeah, because I'm thinking I wouldn't have. I'm thinking there's not going to be a Game 6. Whoa. So I can't. I can't be mad.
If I had to guess, though, it's probably her people being like, "Look, this is our preferred day. So if you guys are that confident about it, let's just keep it Thursday. Then we'll book it. We'll keep it on Thursday."
Right. And in worst case scenarios, you just slip to a slightly different arena the following day.
So, either way, that conversation had to be had. Like, this isn't something that we're just guessing and speculating. No, they had this conversation.
And Josue, it doesn't fall into the category of uncomfortable conversations. Hell no. It's business.
I would say
it's just business.
I would say there's probably like Janet Jackson's got like a little bit of a probably older fan base.
That's what I'm saying, Jimmy. You think they're all NBA fans? Like,
I guarantee you, like a couple women showed up to the arena tonight thinking they were going to see Janet Jackson. Like, just did not know. Didn't
check their
not
email.
Up on sports,
didn't check the email. Nothing.
Just very surprised, and maybe they stuck around for the game. There's probably some tickets available, but anyways, that's neither here nor there. We got our series unanimous Jaylen Brown award for series MVP. I think it's pretty obvious that they're going to need him to keep on keeping on. I think on the other end of the spectrum, I thought this was a pretty disappointing series from Jayson Tatum, relatively speaking. I'm not saying that he was, he stunk, but I think that there were games where I was just, where is this guy? Like, does he understand the situation right now? And, to your point, Sherrod, the games get bigger, the lights get brighter. You don't really have that situation where you're underestimating your opponent. But there have still been situations in big games, even last year in the playoffs. Like, I can remember them losing games and being like, we just didn't come up with the right energy tonight. Like, that is still a concern for me when it comes to Jayson Tatum. And, I'm not trying to blow it into something it isn't, but I think it's something that needs to at least be recognized that, there's no room for that at this point. Like, you got to have that. There's no off button, right? Like, you just got to be on at all times now. This is it.
Well, with Tatum specifically, because of who he is and what he means to this team and how he has performed during the regular season. I mean, the dude averaged better than 30 points a game, something that no Celtic ever did before. That means that when you drop 30, that's a pretty run-of-the-mill average night for your ass. And Tatum only had 2 average nights in this series. Everything else was slightly below average. And I get the fact that he is doing, I think, a better job of facilitating, and his rebounding, I think, has been really strong.
Especially tonight.
Series. Yeah. But that being said, you still need to be that dude that puts his team on his back offensively and carries the load. He just has to be, I think he has to be a little bit better in that regard. And his defense, the weird thing about Tatum, as he goes, so goes his team. He had stretches in this game where his defense was strong. Contesting shots, blocking shots, or at least contesting and altering them. And then he had stretches where it's just like, where you at, bro? Where you at? That can't be going forward. You can't let Tobias Harris get wide open looks. You can't just let Tobias Harris pull up at the mid-range and just stand there without getting a hand up. You can't do that with Max. Mm-hmm. You can't do that with a lot of these Sixers players because they're going to get confident once they see 1 or 2 go down, and that's the worst thing you want to see happen. You don't want them to get into a flow, into a rhythm. You want to make sure that they are always thinking that, damn, he might block my shot. Damn, what is that hand in my face? You need to be into them. You need to have a presence defensively. And I thought Tatum was kind of up and down in that regard. So it'll be interesting to see just the way they approach the Sixers team from a defensive standpoint. I'm more concerned about their defense than anything else.
Yeah, me too, Sherrod, for sure. It's just not the same defensive team we saw last year, obviously, but it's a problem, especially when you saw the defensive lapses against the Hawks. But, to piggyback on what you're saying about Tatum real quick before we get Bobby in here,
Bobby?
we know what he's capable of, right? Last year changed things. This is a guy who had an epic performance, a Game 6 performance against Giannis in the Bucks. He had a not as impressive, but just as important performance in the bubble. Like, he's continued to rise in that regard in terms of putting together those stellar performances that put teams away in the postseason. So I'm still waiting for Tatum to do that. I know he will at some point throughout the playoffs, but yeah, you look at the way he was shooting in this series, shot below 40% more than once, or a few times, I should say. And a lot of the times when he couldn't find his offense, you're wondering if he was going to give you something else, whether it was the playmaking or whether it was a little extra muscle on the defensive end of the floor. I love the rebounding. I love the fact that in games 3 and 4, he was getting to the free throw line a lot. I think that continues against Philly. What I don't want carrying over is, and I know we've mentioned this before, and it's only mentioned when he does it, so I'm mentioning it tonight even though he didn't do it, talking to the officials. I mean, hopefully this is something that he's learned from Game 5. Hopefully behind closed doors, Joe Mazzulla was running that tape being like, you had a big part in this loss because of the, you know what I mean? Like, I hope somewhat of uncomfortable conversations occasionally happens between Joe Mazzulla and Jayson Tatum. If I had to guess, probably not, but there's still some slimmer of hope that at least after Game 5, they had some sort of talk about his overall behavior with the officials, because it's not only worth talking about, but it could cost you a game again in the postseason. You don't want that to happen.
Speaking of being on good behavior, what's up tonight in Atlanta, Bobby? You on your best?
What up?
Yeah, gotta make that fight tomorrow.
Party mode? Oh, so you're gonna be up late. You're gonna be up all night then.
He's pulling all night.
That's a lot of downtime overnight, Bobby.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm thrilled with Tatum. I'm glad you guys are talking about Tatum here. Just got out of the press conference with him. Really? I'm surprised to hear that.
Well, not criticizing him, but we're just like, keep your shit together for the next series,
This was an example of this was an example of a game where I think you'd expect what you're hoping to see more consistently.
Right.
So give us your takeaways from today, since we've already been going for a while.
Yeah, I'll start with Tatum. Got a pass bad away in that second half. And right when that happened, you saw something click there. He started making a ton of good decisions, whether it was dribbling out of the double teams and getting downhill. I thought much of his activity in this game went toward the basket, despite a 3-for-9 3-start and, some shooting highs and lows throughout this game. He had a great game inside. If I'm looking at it, it's 7 for 10 from 2. Of course, 4 free throws, you'd like a little bit more, but he wasn't getting a ton of calls throughout this series. 7 assists, no turnovers, some defensive plays, and then, of course, all the rebounding that Josue mentioned helped them win that battle unbelievably. They fought so hard on the boards in this series. He's a big part of that. All the gang rebounding. Guys made plays up and down the lineup. Loved Al's late energy. Just great intensity and competitiveness from this group tonight. You saw them really rise to a tough moment with the crowd going crazy, with a Game 7 looming. They trailed by 7 a couple times in the second half, and they had no answer for Trae Young right up until the end. So I know we're all looking at this series now and rolling our eyes and saying, oh man, like this went way longer than it should have. Not enough rest for Philly. Blew Game 5. But at the end of the day, and this is something they stressed tonight, and I agree with it, the Hawks are better than we thought. They just challenged the Celtics constantly throughout this series in so many different ways. I think it's going to end up being a pretty good test for them, handling rebounding, finding lineups, finding coverages to solve stars who are scoring at will against them, and then, of course, bouncing back from a brutal loss the way they did here tonight. I'm still so impressed, and they've done it last couple of years here. They've had some devastating losses that they've shrugged off, gone back on a plane, landed, taken the court, and taken care of. I mean, Game 5 against Milwaukee last year, Game 6 against the Heat, Game 5 against this team. Those looked like rock bottom moments for this team, and we killed them for just kind of shrugging and saying, whatever, on to the next one. But that's how they've handled this. And as frustrating as that can be to hear, it feels like that's how they go about handling adversity at this point.
And in their business.
I'm just going to, Bobby, I'm going to have to respectfully disagree with you about the Hawks a little bit. Because here's the thing. While I agree that they may not have been as bad as we thought they were, this thing should have been over in 5 games. There's 7 turnovers in the fourth quarter. And Joe Mazzulla, I asked him about that pregame, and Joe Mazzulla was pretty damn honest and straight about it. That it was on us. Those turnovers were our fault.
You hit the wrong button, Jim.
I was trying to get Sherrod. You're good.
And so that, to me, means that this thing should have been over in 5 games, particularly when you look at the fact that the Hawks won that game, won a last-second buzzer beater in a quarter in which you turned the ball over 7 times, in which the Hawks, your opponent, had very little to do with that. So, no, Hawks may have been a little bit better than you thought, but this should not have gone 6 games. At most, this was 5. And that's on the Celtics why it went 5, not the Hawks being better. The Celtics didn't do the job they're supposed to.
Yeah. I'm kind of I think I'm leaning towards Sherrod on that. I think talent-wise, we know this team is much more talented than the Hawks were. Yes, Bobby, like John Collins kind of came out of nowhere he didn't come out of nowhere. He just came back from the dead, I guess. Over the last couple games.
Which I was wondering when that was going to happen, but I guess that was started in Boston.
I think if they got a more consistent
zombie style on us.
Yeah, exactly. If they got a
Sherrod was talking about him being a potential never mind.
See, Josue, you go make.
I heard Max's voice in my ear.
I'm about to go Cedric Maxwell on you in a minute.
I don't know what that
No, it was a good take. I'm not gonna. I won't expose your take.
All good.
Regardless, I think the one thing I'll say about the Hawks, and maybe this is kind of like a cop-out answer, is that they played hard. Like they played probably above their talent level. They fought back against the Celtics. Aside from Game 1, that was kind of a weird. I thought that was an exception game, and I thought that maybe let the Celtics get a little bit too cocky in this one, in this series. And that's kind of, you can't do that against another NBA team, because no NBA team is going to be that bad to lose, a series in that fashion. So I give the Hawks credit for fighting back the way they did. They kept the games interesting. Celtics pulled away in the end because at the end of the day, they were the more talented team. And when they just played defense, that was the difference a lot of times, in the outcomes. And tonight we saw them turn on the Jets defensively. Bobby, you were in there with Sherrod tonight. I mean, what did you see differently in that fourth quarter, maybe the second half of that fourth quarter?
They started preventing on Young. I thought that was probably the best look they gave him all game. I like Grant out there being able to switch and stick with him speed-wise. I'm going to harp on that coming out of this series because they narrowly avoided losing Grant, I think, here. And I've said this all year. Through all these benchings and DNPs and limited minute games, you end up needing him tonight with Horford foul trouble, with Rob out of this game pretty much all night. They need a 4 who could switch, who could play the perimeter and guard inside. And did he have some shaky rebounding moments? Yes. Did he miss some shots in the fourth quarter that didn't look great? Yeah. Mm-hmm. But he ends up being a part of that versatile defensive attack late that closed this game out. I think the offense probably did more to close this out, but still, he's a floor spacer. And that's what I talk about with Grant. I don't know how we got to this point where he's just this guy who plays a little sometimes of this foul trouble. This guy's so versatile. He hits threes. If he plays his role right, and I know this is what you guys are going to respond with, is he always going to play his role right? Is he not going to complain? These things that probably keep him from getting in games consistently. You needed him tonight, and everybody I talked to tonight was just ecstatic about the way he played. Horford said he was so key. Smart, too. Joe said he played a tremendous game. So, incidentally, right before a series where you're going to need him, I thought Grant was a huge part of that second half tonight.
I would agree. Yeah. I would agree. I thought Grant, he did what you're supposed to do when you're a player like him, and that is make the most of the role that you have. And I thought he did a great job of that. Other than, he had the one foul where the foul that he committed under the basket that was an and one. That's just because Grant is not vertically elite. He's not jumping out of the gym, and he got caught underneath a guy who just put back and he fouled him. But that being said, Grant's overall game I thought was good. I thought he made really good decisions. I thought he made really good non-decisions when he didn't like something out there. He didn't do what we saw earlier this year where he'd bitch and moan about to the refs. He didn't do any of that. And as long as Grant plays the game and leaves all that other extraneous stuff to others, he's going to get on the floor. He's going to help this team. So hopefully we'll see him, a little bit more active and engaged and on the floor in the Sixers series. I can't imagine why he wouldn't play more than we've seen.
They'll need him.
They're going to need him, especially closing down the wings and closing down the baseline. And it comes down to defense with Grant. And I'm not calling him a bad defender, but I just feel like, again, it's a trust thing. And little by little, he's re-earning Joe Mazzulla's trust. And going into this series, they're going to need him. They will. He's going to be important. So it'll be interesting. But I think one of the strongest takeaways from this series is clearly what happened in Game 5, and that's the one thing that's going to stick out the most, even a little bit more so than what we saw tonight, but especially because you saw a guy like Trae Young essentially put a team on his back and beat you. And that stuff happens from time to time in a best-of-7 series, right? But how many times is that going to happen again? You know what I mean? And I don't mean that in a bad way. It's a legit question, right? Like, how many times is that going to happen to the Celtics defense, and how are they going to respond? Because they didn't respond great in those first 2 quarters of this game, right? I mean, Trae went right back into what he was doing in that fourth quarter. He dropped another 18 points in the first. Shit, the dude was on pace to go off again, but he just cooled off in the second half. I mean, I think it was Jimmy. It was you who said it. I mean, he goes off. Maybe this thing does go 7, right? I mean, he had the reinforcements to do so. Everybody else was doing their thing. Even Murray, who I was concerned would have a huge night, woke up in that second half, and it just seemed like that was the one thing missing to complete what the Hawks were trying to do tonight. So you wonder, on the grand scheme of things, how does that translate throughout the rest of the playoffs, and who's going to be that guy? Obviously, Joel Embiid is the new, he's the threat now going into this series. But how much does he control that series? How much does he put his team on his back, and how many times does he do it to win a game or two throughout the course of the best of 7? And will that be enough for the Sixers to force a game 7? You have to look at it like that, not in the sense of how many games will the Celtics close this thing out. I mean, let's wait and see. But I obviously I have the Celtics winning this series, but I don't know. I think it's gonna be a much longer series now because of so many of the flaws that we saw against the Hawks just pop up left and right.
Bobby, you were talking about Grant briefly, and we talked about it right after the beginning of the show, to be honest. Sherrod, I don't think you were on yet. It was me, John, and Josue. And yeah, Grant got minutes tonight, and I think he proved to be somewhat useful and somebody that I think can be counted on in certain situations. What I'm wondering, and what I wondered and said earlier, is was this more of Grant deserves some playing time, or Rob played himself out of some playing time tonight based on his performance in Game 5?
It was foul trouble.
Yeah, foul trouble.
Rob playing poorly and necessity. Things went so poorly on the defensive end in that first half, I think, that they want to try something different. And the first time we saw him was at center right before halftime, which I was like, what? They didn't go back to that, but it showed they needed a different look out there. So I think it's a little bit of both. Rob, I don't know what was going on with Rob out there tonight. It felt like he didn't do much of anything other than contest some shots.
So that's my negative. My main big negative of the night is Rob, and I'm wondering, because they do have a series here now with Philadelphia, and
this is a tough series for Rob.
Last I checked, Philadelphia had a pretty good center on their end, so that's a strength for Philly, and it seems to be like it's a weakness for Boston right now. Is the center position that they're plugging and playing guys because.
I'm not going to go as far as weakness after the game Al Horford just had. I mean,
okay,
ginormous performance from him.
Sure, but I think you need more than Al Horford, right? And I agree with you. Al Horford was
the depth you're talking about.
Yeah, and Al Horford's kind of obviously a different style. He's not going to be banging down low with Embiid, right? He's going to be out, certainly be contesting the outside shots. But I think point being, like, where's Robert Williams in your mind right now? Because it seems like on any given night, he could be looking like the guy jumping out of the gym or looking like the guy just sitting on the bench because for whatever reason, Missoula isn't happy with him or he's not effective. And it feels like we should be past. I feel like we should be past this right now. I feel like he didn't 25, 30 minutes from Rob easily and effectively.
Yeah, he didn't play an amazing series. Now, him being out there makes all the difference in the world. You look at the amount of shots he contested tonight, and then you look at 3 blocks and 2 steals. I mean, that's a bonus in 17 minutes for a guy coming off your bench. But that's what he is right now. Horford's going to be that point man on Embiid, I hope, right? I remember last game, Grant covered Embiid so much more than Horford did, which frustrated me, and I thought it was a big reason they gave up 52
to him.
Yeah, so I hope they flip that a little bit here, but they're going to need either Al or Grant on the floor at all times with Rob, I think, because I don't see him covering pick and rolls effectively against Embiid and Harden. I don't see him being the guy who fronts Embiid in the post. So they're going to have to put him on a PJ Tucker or one of those Philly wings that they hope isn't going to hurt him and have him playing in that middle area, which they try to do for a lot of this series. It just got weird in this series, I think, Jimmy, because Horford was already dropping. And then Rob was playing off Hunter and some of these other guys. And honestly, they kept hitting threes over him and beating him on the backside. So he couldn't find a place to play defensively out there. They were killing him in the pick and roll. He was fouling in some of these games. And then you always go back to the conditioning, too. What was that huge game he had? I'm trying to forget. I'm forgetting. One of the games, his best game of the series. He looked exhausted after it. So the consistency with him is what you question. The matchup, I think, is a tough one for him. So this is why I say Grant's got to be ready to go. And I hope tonight was enough of a warm-up for Grant to be able to play 20, 30 minutes in the Philly series.
Whoa. Did you say 30?
You think Grant's going to play 30?
I have 2 guys.
I was looking at the first, that 20 I could see. I don't see Grant giving you 30 in this against Joe. I don't see that.
Unless you're going double big. And we saw some
where
of the
are those
problems
minutes coming from?
Going double big. I think they're coming from Rob. I think they're coming from one of the guards. I think they're going to play bigger in this series.
Yeah, I think
you need Grant.
Whew. Bobby.
I keep saying it, guys.
Grant, I just think 30 is a little much.
No, I mean 30 is the high end if he's playing great. I mean 17 tonight is the average.
Not with the qualifier, I can buy that. If he's playing great, and by great meaning Joel is not dominating the action and Grant's making shots and the Celtics are pulling ahead, double digits when he's on the floor. Yes, that could get you on the 30.
Like his game 3, 4 for 4 from 3, and some versatile defense out there. I know they lost that game, but he played well tonight. He played well in spite of not scoring. I just don't get it. I mean, Jimmy, why isn't he playing?
I can't figure. Why isn't Grant playing?
Yeah,
because Josue thinks that. John thinks Mazzulla hates Grant, and Josue thinks that he doesn't trust Grant.
That's what I keep hearing, right?
He doesn't trust him.
I keep hearing his situation, what he's going through. It's strange. It's so strange to me because, listen, when Ime was here, Ime had his gripes with him as a player, and they certainly went at it as much as any two players.
Because he's obnoxious a little bit?
Yeah. Yes, but I'm saying Ime didn't have him taking DMPs last year. He didn't give a single DMP to Grant last year.
He didn't have this kind of depth, though.
Yeah, I was going to say the playlist was a little bit different.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah. But who's ahead of him at this point? Like Muscala can't play.
Well, what about Hauser? Is Hauser out now?
I've said all along, Grant gives you more than Hauser. And Hauser had a nice game 5 in this series before they lost. That was about it. I mean, he came into this game for a couple minutes tonight and got run off the floor.
Blake?
He played I think 4 minutes.
Yeah.
Total. Which is crazy.
Might see a little Blake in this series.
I could see
maybe some foul trouble.
I can see Blake because I see Blake as the
player
that could get under Joel's skin a little bit. I absolutely see Blake being an irritant.
That and it's personal with Blake, man. The whole what happened in the Clippers and Doc Rivers. I just think something about him he wants to stick it to Doc, man.
Blake is still
and Mazzulla knows that. Mazzulla respects that. He likes that type of energy, so he's here for that. So he'll unleash Blake for sure in this series.
Yeah, and Blake's role may just simply to be out there to get under Joel's skin. Like if Joel catches the ball on the block, Blake's just foul the hell out of him hard.
Yep.
Hard. And if Joel gets mad and wants to get in Blake's face, be there for that smoke.
Exactly.
Don't back away from that smoke.
If I'm Mazzulla, you want that. You applaud that. Get him upset.
Oh yeah.
Embiid career playoffs against the Celtics. What do you guys think of that number? 1-8.
That's bad.
Thank you, Bobby.
That's bad.
Like you said, man, not a rivalry.
Oh, don't forget the sweep that sweep they had with against him and Simmons
and he's hurt. Remember, sprained LCL. This happens every year with him. I don't think Harden's 100%.
He's playing, Bobby. Don't do it.
I'm not saying he's not going to play, but I just wonder what they'll look like. And this is already a tough matchup for them.
Yeah, I could see him playing limited minutes, him being on some type of minutes restriction. I could absolutely see that. And then I can see him just saying, F that, I'm going to stay out here and play. Leg limping.
Doc Rivers wants to keep his job. He's going to play Joel as long as Joel will play.
And remember, they didn't play. I know they swept the Nets, but they didn't play that well. No. They were on the ropes in some of these games. And Embiid had a bad series. I think he averaged close to 20.
The Nets lost that series more so than I thought Philly wanted. There were multiple games where Joel Embiid was in major foul trouble, and Brooklyn did not go at him once. In game 3, where Joel had 5 fouls with 2 or 3 minutes to play, and they did not run a single play where they attacked him. Why no? And then at the very end of the game, if I think on one of the last possessions, Joel makes this great block. But I'm thinking you do realize if you'd have went at him 2 or 3 times before that, he might not have been on the floor to make that block. So, Philly, I thought they played solid. To me, the way they played against Brooklyn very similar to how the Celtics played against Atlanta. They played well enough to move on to the next round, but by no means did you see the best version of who they are in that series, because they'll be better against Boston.
We'll do a deep dive on this, I'm sure, and I hate to make a prediction this early, Jimmy, because I haven't already did all the numbers. All right, without listening to Sherrod's prediction, oh, there it is.
He couldn't even let you. Couldn't even wait. All right, what do you got, Bobby? I'm sure that's not going to sway you.
I hesitate to say this because it would, but it wouldn't be me if it wasn't.
Is he going to say a sweep?
He's going to say sweep.
I think the Celtics are going to sweep this series.
Oh, 6 games, guys.
Yes.
You heard it here first.
And I was torn.
One extreme or the other with this guy.
I was torn, Jimmy.
Bobby?
I was torn, Jimmy, because I think Embiid's playing at a high enough level this year to, on his own, push at 6, but he's hurt. So that secured my confidence in saying.
That's 2 losses. That's 2 losses.
All right, between 2 of you, yeah, I think it's 6 games.
You're splitting
Way
it.
to go, Bobby. Way to cannonball with the prediction. That's like, damn, he's not even dipping.
I was nervous.
You got the Hawks 1 game. You're not gonna give them Sixers 1 game. Damn.
So Bobby, you fully trust these guys even after some of the displays that we saw.
So let me run through it, Jimmy. Let me run through it.
5, Bobby. I feel good with 5.
Let me run through it.
Are you going, Sherrod? Are you going gentleman sweep 5, or are you just going 5?
I'm going 5. Philly's going to make it interesting.
It's tough. It's tough to sweep. It is.
Gentleman sweep.
There's going to be a couple games where Philly's going to play well enough to have a shot at winning that they'll just find a way to blow it in the end. But it'll go 5. I feel that. I feel good about 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
3 home games for the Boston fans. Okay.
What
were you going to say, Bobby?
I'm just running through this, and I haven't dove into everything on this series yet. Maxey, it's hard to play him against the Celtics. They always find him and exploit him. And Embiid, they have so many bodies to throw at him. Harden, I haven't been impressed all year with him. He doesn't look great to me. Last time they played the Sixers, he only shot 3 shots at the rim, and the numbers always look good, but I'm always watching saying, what do you actually do? Harris always seems to be invisible. Tucker had a great last game against them, shorthanded, but he's a guy you can stash Rob on and get some good minutes out of him. Melton's fine, not much of a needle mover. And what's left? I mean, Embiid's amazing. And again, Embiid's playing at such a higher level this year than these past series. He threw up the 1 and 8. That on its own makes a difference. And if he's right, he's going to take a game or 2. But now that he has an LCL sprain, that's a significant injury. And there's some doubt about whether he's ready to go for the start of the series. I know Harden's had some Achilles pain in the year. I think the Celtics are going to sweep them.
So you're telling me that the Sixers are a little banged up too, right? They probably could use some athletic greens, guys. Not to get you guys know briefly about the other sponsor of our show today. Our very good friends over at AG1 Athletic Greens. So head over to Elm/Garden for a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. You guys by now know all about Athletic Greens. We talk about them on the show a lot because we all use them. I mean, I know I certainly do every single morning. Quick scoop into the water, shake it up, down the hatch, off you go. 75 vitamins, minerals, adaptogens, prebiotics, probiotics. Let's be honest, guys. You know, we're just not getting enough vegetables. We're just not getting enough vegetables every single day. And why would we? Mom and dad aren't making us. But this is a good way to get that in there and not have to, worry about that $15 salad at lunch that nobody really wants to buy, but sometimes you feel obligated to. Athletic Greens comes out to like $3 or less, depending on your subscription a day. Far cheaper than the money that you'd spend on vegetables throughout the course of your day. Cheaper than a cup of coffee and much better for you. So again, guys, athleticgreens.com/garden. You get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D on top of what you get with the Athletic Greens order, which comes with a cool shaker glass, comes with it comes with the month of Athletic Greens. It comes with vitamin D and 5 free travel packs. Travel packs are awesome. I actually ordered travel packs on the side too because they're super handy. Toss them in your duffel bag, toss them in your backpack on your way to school or whatever. So again, that's AG1 athleticgreens.com/garden. So Bobby was just telling us how part of the reason for his Celtics sweep is health. I think really it only comes down to Joel Embiid's health. They're going to go as far as he's going to take them. I think personally, James Harden is not completely washed, but he's heading in that direction. He's just not the same guy anymore. I mean, a couple of years ago, He looks different. I don't know if it was the fat suit that he put on a few too many times or what, but he's a little bit slower out there. It's it's the speed. It's, I think he's going to get you. I think he's got to be more of a facilitator, and maybe he can still hurt you that way. He's not the guy that you're worried about dropping 30 on you as much anymore. I think he could still rear back and get one, but it's certainly not as consistent or as fearful as you would when you really feared the beard back in the day. So, you talked about Maxey. Who else stands out to you on this team that was going to give the Celtics a run? Because I'm certainly on the side where I think the Celtics are going to advance in this series. I don't think it shouldn't be a 7-game series. I think 6 would even be pushing it. I think you guys are right where it should be around 5 or 6. I think 6 is as most as I would anticipate. I'm going to give the Sixers some credit and just say that, yeah, they can give the Celtics a run. And also, I'm still struggling. I have trust issues. With this team. I've seen it happen too many times in the regular season. I've seen it happen in the playoffs where they just don't look like the team that I know that they should look like, whether that's because of
well, you know what the biggest worry is, Jimmy?
Or just their lack of effort in defense. What's that?
Game 1 comes around on Monday. The injury report comes out and Embiid's out, and the Celtics just go,
right?
All right.
Exactly.
Can you imagine?
Exactly.
That would be like Doc Rivers' greatest.
We got this.
Yeah. That's spot on. Yeah, pretty much.
A 50% chance to return. So I mean, the Celtics didn't greatly favor losing Game 5. They bought the Sixers an extra day.
9 days off.
Sorry, an extra couple of days. Right. So, that's something that we'll obviously be on the lookout for. But you're right, Bobby. That would just be perfect, right?
Yeah. They
announced he goes out, and we have a replay of the Oklahoma City Thunder loss debacle when they announced that.
Unless Maxey figures out a way to play and thrive in this series, and this has been a brutal matchup for him. There's some games where he's barely played because of how big of a target he is. This is going to be a tough one for Philly. It is a brutal matchup for them. I do like how they played in that game where Tatum hit the game winner. I thought Embiid cut off the post, and that really bothered the Celtics. They're going to have to play fast again here to prevent him from just clogging the lane and rejecting driving kicks, because even tonight you saw how important those are, the Celtics offense. Brown getting downhill, Tatum driving and kicking. You can't do that when Embiid's playing in there all the time. So they're going to need Horford to be great. They're going to need Grant to hit threes. They're going to need guys spacing the floor, which White did a good job of in this series. Brogdon always does a good job of. And again, Horford and Grant, especially at those big man positions, need to be out there spacing the Sixers out, which is another reason, Jimmy, I don't think this is a great series for Rob either, unfortunately.
Well, you know what? I'm sick of it, because at what point is it not so matchup based for a guy that's supposed to be such a focal point on your team? I mean, really, how many years? So is he just not a guy that you can depend on night in, night out? Is he
just a bench guy?
Yeah. You tell me. I don't know.
I mean this year,
bench guy, but it feels
that's
like
what he became.
Some games he is.
Until he gets surgery. I don't know.
Surgery? I don't want to hear another surgery.
Knock on wood. Yeah, seriously.
Well, it was a minimal one, but who knows? Maybe he'll need something else down the road to unlock him.
I think what he needs to unlock is it's all up here, and this is what Joe Mazzulla is been trying to get at. Is that Rob's biggest setback might not be physical; it might be mental. It might literally be unlocking his brain and allowing himself to be the Rob that we see in spurts, but we just don't see on a consistent basis. And I honestly think that's the reason why he didn't get as much playing time tonight. I think that was a little bit of a message from coach.
Yeah, game 1, 12-8. Game 2, 8-5. 4-5 in game 3. Game 4 was the big one, 13-15, where everyone was praising him. Comes back with 10-7. All right, fine in the loss.
But it was a weak 10-7.
4-6 tonight.
Yeah. I mean, and I know not everything Rob does is based on the box score. You have to watch, and you have to see how he
just him being out there makes a difference. Right. But you always dream. Again, game 4, we're sitting there dreaming. We're like, man, how involved he was in the offense, all these rebounds. how aggressive he played. This could be Rob. And then it's just back to the little things. And you love the little things from him. Just him being out there is a massive difference. But you're always dreaming of Rob becoming something that can take over a game. And instead it just, as you said, Jimmy, becomes a little more subtle.
Right. Facts, my dog. What else?
Anyway, I'm excited for this one. Should be another good crowd in Philly once it turns over there. I'm sure Celtics fans will get a little more amped up for this series than they were for the Hawks one, which I think they were snoozing through a little bit in games 1, 2, and 5.
They weren't alone in that snoozing.
Yeah, for real.
You guys got any comments on? I mean, I think we got to at least comment on the Bucks. Did we got any comments on how the other series kind of shook out here? I mean, Bobby, should we go full apology cam for what happened in Cleveland, or do you want to just gloss over that? How do you want to approach that?
It's twofold. It's twofold. Obviously, the Cavs weren't an East Finals team. Their limitations were just too massive on the wing to be able to compete with even New York, never mind Boston, or who they would have played in the second round. I guess it would have been Miami. That would have been terrible. But that's one. Two, the Heat were for real. And anyone who was scared, anyone who was nervous about the Celtics playing them round 1, you were right to feel that way. I pulled up Jimmy's stats today, and it is just, it's goofy. 60% from the field on the volume of shooting he's taking, 37 per game, while dishing 4 or 5 assists and grabbing all those rebounds. He's flying through the air, tipping in a lob shot at the buzzer. It didn't even seem real. Yeah. No, I mean, we've seen playoff. This is like Jordan. Like, I didn't get to watch Jordan. It felt like I was watching Jordan for this series.
No,
it's crazy. And you know what? I tweeted this.
He's got the
look
genes,
out.
Man.
Look out. It might be. I said, everyone who was nervous about Miami round 1, you might be nervous about Miami round 3 the way this is going. I mean, it might be a Boston-Miami East Finals.
And they lost Hero, too. I mean, these guys literally, they had no reason to beat this Bucks team the way
I'm picking the Knicks. I'm picking the Knicks over them because, and this is the other side of this conversation. The Bucks coaching staff, Bud obviously, just sat there and watched them shoot over drops. They never threw many doubles or traps on him or got the ball out of his hands. They just kind of watched him destroy him all series. And that's the epitome of Bud, I think. And it's hard to imagine him coming back as coach after that. Just a disastrous loss from Milwaukee. They were the title favorites. To lose 4-1 round 1. Sherrod, you've been around longer than me. I can't remember a playoff loss worse than this. I know Giannis got hurt, but he was out there for the last 2 losses.
Yeah, I mean, this one's going to be hard for Bud to survive. Because not just losing in the first round, but the way they lost. And he's not going to get a pass because Giannis missed a game. Because even without Giannis, you still should have been able to be more competitive and win, at least 2-3 games. But you got gentlemen swept by a team that had to basically claw their way into the postseason. I mean, this is bad for Bud. I would not be surprised if we see as early as tomorrow, but it's let go. Would not shock me at all.
Really?
I mean, these things happen quickly. I mean, you look at what's happened in the last couple of weeks, and
would you call it a failure?
And
there's no failure in sports, Jimmy. You know that. There's no
failure. I'm glad you brought that up, Jimmy, because it leads into my next point. Because look, a team like the Bucks with the season that they had. It's a failure, but I feel like what
it's
Giannis
not a failure.
I was gonna say, what Giannis did though? What Giannis did when he stepped at that podium and was taking those questions is he personified the loss. He took it personal because he was getting the questions about his free throw shooting. What he missed 12, a dozen from the line in that one. He's getting pressured about if there's something that it was mechanical in his release or anything like that. So I felt like he was taking the blame as if the guy was saying, Giannis, are you a failure? Like that's what he heard. You know what I mean? Like that's what Giannis heard. And he didn't even spaz. He like politely
he held himself back.
And explained himself.
The thing that I love about Giannis is he does take all defeats personal.
Because
for him it is
especially when he feels at fault.
Yes, it's not about money or any of that other stuff. It's about winning basketball championships. When he doesn't do that, it hurts him. You can literally see the hurt
that
he's going through, and you don't see that from most players. You just don't see it. It's just like, yeah, well, we got next year.
He looked tired, man. He's just like, damn. Yeah. I don't want to answer this type of question after what just happened right now. Like, and to his credit,
his response was priceless.
It was a thoughtful response, and I think you can take take his response and really apply it to a lot of things in life. But I think when you're talking about a sports team or a company and you have a specific goal and you miss that goal, well, if that was the main purpose of the project or whatever, then yeah, in that aspect, it was a failure. That doesn't mean that you couldn't learn something new about yourself or grow and all that good stuff along the way. So it's all about perspective, I guess. But at the end of the day, if the Celtics lost to the Hawks tonight and then lost Game 7, we're not sitting here and Jason Tatum says, well, it wasn't a failure because,
the difference is Giannis has
we're not going to accept that. Like, sure. But so then he knows he knows obviously the difference between success and failure. Right. And again, it's maybe it's not that black and white, but I do think that, when it comes to sports, if you have a specific goal and like, let's say like, for example, you have expectations are set. You're a team that the 1 seed people are, and you should be expecting to go pretty damn far into the playoffs and to lose in the first round. I mean, you can pick whatever words you want, but I think you kind of failed in your conquest for whatever your goals were that series. So, anyways, that's that series, and we also have, so Knicks beat the Cavs. I think the Knicks are a tough team. I agree with you, Bobby. I think Knicks would take it over the Heat. Maybe if Hero's in, that's a little different. I just think the Knicks, and again, I don't know what Randall's status is either. I know he sprained his ankle again or re-injured his ankle. So they're dealing with a couple issues on their own. But, man, is it good? This might be controversial because the Knicks fans are insufferable. But it's good. Sherrod, you can probably back me up on this. It's good that the Knicks are good. It's good for basketball that the Knicks are good.
Well, it's just good for basketball because it's something new and different. I mean, it's been so damn long that they.
Oh no! Do we lose Sherrod? We lost Sherrod. Typical
He
Knicks.
He didn't plug in his laptop.
You think he just ran out of battery?
I think he ran out of battery. That looks like the system just shut down.
You've seen that before. Josue's been on the other end of that before. He knows what that looks like.
Sure, I have, Jimmy.
I will salute.
Relevant.
Oh no, he's good.
Oh, he's back from the dead. Sherrod, you there?
Repeat that, Sherrod. We got you now.
We missed everything you said, Sherrod.
Really? Okay. I'll sum it up for you. Yes, it's good that the Knicks are good, but the reason they're good, the reason it's good is because they've been irrelevant for so damn long.
Yeah.
So it's just something new and different, and that to me that's why it's significant because this is not the norm for the New York Knicks. So we'll see what they can do with the Heat though.
What do you expect?
Yeah, I mean, it's great because obviously the Madison Square Garden is the Mecca and the history, and people love playing there. And Knicks fans are crazy, man. They're bitter, they're enthusiastic. So yeah, all that stuff's good for the game. But the reason I love it is because of the free agent that they signed. Jalen Brunson. Mm-hmm. Coming into that situation, there was some skepticism if he was the guy, and some Knicks fans, some of that fan base, or some of the city was like, man, how do you miss out on trading for Donovan Mitchell? And then he goes out there and knocks that guy out when the Cleveland Cavaliers was not only the favorite, but one of the teams that people had as a dark horse to get to the Eastern Conference Finals. Like that's huge, man. And I'm so happy for Brunson, just the kind of player that he is, the hardworking point guard, and give you a little bit of something on both ends of the floor type of production. Who he was in Dallas and the way he sort of get a name for himself, work his way up. So yeah, all that is good, and it's good for the league. And it's great to see the Knicks back in it, another team that no one saw making it out of the first round. But I'm going with the Heat, man. I think the Heat get back to the Eastern Conference Finals. I think Jimmy Butler, what he's doing right now is not only obviously made himself the best player right now in the playoffs, but it's also galvanized that team. And I think when stuff like that happens, it resonates, especially for a team that's been together as long as the Miami Heat have been, that core of guys. And especially when one of your guys is down in Tyler Hero. I think that helped things as well. But this is big, though. I clearly didn't see this coming. I'm not going to act like I did. So if they're able to pull this thing off, man, you got to give props to not only the Heat culture, if you will, but to Eric Spoelstra for putting these guys in a position to win.
For sure. So that's going on out there. Celtics have their own second round series to worry about now. That comes to you guys on Monday, right? What is that? Is that Monday? Do we have that on here?
Yeah, Monday.
Yeah, Monday.
Got the weekend.
So we got Celtics, Sixers Monday. You guys will be there, I'm sure. Josue, Sherrod, Bobby had to bounce. They said he said they were unscrewing his table. He sends his love, and we appreciate all you guys who stuck around tonight. It was a late one, so we want to also thank FanDuel for their support. That's FanDuel.com/Boston. $5, $10 deposit, $5 bet. You get $200 bonus. You can put it on the Celtics Sixers series. So that's FanDuel.com/Boston. And then once again, our guys at AG1 athleticgreens.com/garden for 1 year supply of vitamin D, 5 free travel packs, and a step forward in your health. So thank you guys, Sherrod, Josue. We will see you guys Monday,
guys.
TD Garden.
Round 2.
You guys have a good weekend. And again, thanks everybody for checking in.